Welcome to the program. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria says it has discontinued granting loans through its ways and means advances to the federal government of Nigeria. CBN Governor Nnaemeka says the decision is due to the government's failure to settle its outstanding debt. At an interactive session with the Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions, he said the loan to the federal government has now been halted until the outstanding balance is settled. Now, the Ways and Means is a loan facility that the CBN advances to the federal government to fund budgetary shortfalls. The loan facility has been a subject of controversy among Nigerians, with experts expressing concern that CBN had exceeded its lending threshold to the federal government against extant laws. Now, the federal government's borrowing from the CBN stood at 4.36 trillion naira as of June 2023. A month after former President Obiaraeri securitized 22.7 trillion naira borrowed from the Apex Bank. Now, the outstanding debt of 4.36 trillion naira so far exceeds 5% of the federal government's revenue of 8.8 trillion naira for the year 2023, which is against the CBN Act. Let's listen to Kadosu.
Distinguished senators, we must understand, let me go back. However, for these measures to be sustainable, we must as a country moderate our demand for FX. I think this is very important. Honestly, CBN has no magic wand. We do not have. Our responsibility is in the process. If foreign exchange comes into us, we manage it in a way that is in best interest of the country, and we do not have excessive volatility. Okay, that's one. Our argument on the demand side is that we as Nigerians also must work together to moderate demand. Where there are opportunities for us to substitute locally, so we should. A couple of days ago, I made reference.
All right, CBN Governor Nnaemeka there. And of course, we're moving straight to Lagos now, where we are being joined by Dr. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, who is a development economist and banking executive. Thank you so much for joining us to help us understand all the issues. Now, no more overdraft for the federal government of Nigeria. How will the federal government cope in the light of dwindling revenues in the year 2024?
Thank you, Sambo. The federal government of Nigeria does not have any revenue problem because we know what to do to raise revenues. What we have is overbloated expenditure that is creating problem for Nigeria. If you look at the 2024 budget, 28.7 trillion, between the wages and non-wages expenditure, we have over 16 trillion that is budgeted for wages and then debt servicing recurrent expenditure. Practically, the deficit that we are going to be borrowing is what we are going to be investing in capital project. Everything we are going to earn based on the revenue side is going to be wasted on less than 1 million civil servants and political office holders, which is not right. We need to find ways of cutting cost of governance by at least 60%. Just take, for instance, the issue of the committee that was set up to discuss review of minimum wage for civil servants. 37-member committee. It was alleged that they made a request to Mr. President for 1.8 trillion for committee allowances, and then he approved 500 million. There is no basis for us to even approve 1 naira for such committee. Look back, in 2011, when minimum wage was 18,000, the exchange rate was 155 naira to $1. That simply means minimum wage was $116. In 2018, when it was reviewed, exchange rate was 361. Minimum wage was $83. It's just simple. You don't need any skyrocket science. Average of 116 plus 83.
Yeah, I just needed to cut in there.
99.5.
Dr. Obiaraeri, I just needed to cut in there that it's actually 1.8 billion that was requested, and then it was cut down to 1 billion, which was formally made as a request. And then, of course, President Tinubu is said to have approved 500 million naira. So I just needed to put that correctly. Just go ahead then.
Sambo, we have no. This is the kind of things that infuriates Nigerians. This is the kind of things that makes Nigerians see the political office holders as very insensitive. I'm telling you the shortest cost around this. Minimum wage 2011 was $116. Minimum wage 2018, $83. Average of minimum wage 2011-2018 is $99.5. What is the current NAFEM rate? Apply it. Minimum wage for civil servants should range between 100,000 to 150,000 naira per month. You don't need an overbloated committee of 37 men that will still eat up into the scarce revenues that we have for them to decide. Even the civil servants know what is due to them. So we do not need any skyrocket science to scientifically derive what is the minimum wage that can at least assuage the suffering of the civil servants. 100,000 to 150,000 is the range. You don't need any committee wasting our 1 billion naira or 500 million naira for that committee. They should take note of this. Now, Cardoso says some very interesting things. I am so glad to hear that they've eliminated ways and means. And again, he also mentioned the issue of liquidity that came in of about $1 billion. And of course, that has to do with some of the deft policy steps that he has taken. By moving the treasury bills rate to the level it is today, you will see clearly that over 1.3 trillion was mopped out of the market. Now, there's a kind of certainty within that market. Most people that will have taken flight to dollar have now seen outlet where they can get at least 19%, which actually is 22%, rather than keeping their monies in deposit money banks at 3-4%. That does not make any meaning when inflation rate is above 28%. Beyond the steps he has taken, like I said, we don't have a revenue problem. What we have is overbloated cost and corruption problem that we need to tackle. On the revenue side, beyond the FPIs that are going to come in to take advantage of the high rates, and of course there's going to be a lot of swaps and all those stuff, the NNPC, the fiscal side, the federal government must take steps. I've always advocated this. NNPC today is valued at over $60 billion. Do you know what will happen and the signal it will send to the global world if the federal government of Nigeria decide to take a step to privatize and divest 55% of its holding in NNPC, just like they did in LNNG, and bring in deep-pocketed, technically savvy private investors? That will get in at least $32 billion into the federation account. Enough liquidity to cushion the effect. And now let me tell you what will happen. This NNPC that is now privately run in the real sense of it, with diverse shareholders being controlled by the private, can be listed on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Imagine what will happen. And let me tell you, like you talked last time I came to your studio, you were talking about the IOCs leaving the market. A transparently run NNPC today, if they want to go into the upstream to open marginal fields and invest and expand investment there, and transparently run a little, if they decide to float diaspora bond of $10-20 billion to 10-year diaspora bond, even at 5%, to do investment in the upstream sector that will enable them to unlock the value chains there, most Nigerians will subscribe to it. Like I said, we know the right things to do to unlock the market, to bring in investment into Nigeria, to show up the supply side of the dollar. But those on the physical side should need to start cracking. Somebody will tell me, oh, it will take longer time to divest and all those stuff. You can appoint a JP Morgan Chase or a Goldman Sachs to midwife it. Once it's already announced that such process is in place, we can easily raise a bridging facility against the proceeds that will come to the federal government of not less than $15 billion. This is structured and financial engineering that can be done if these guys are very, very sincere. NNPC, as currently structured and are currently run, is not too transparent, is not efficient. Today, like I said, we have a lot of marginal fuels that are being recovered that are still out there. If we want to get people to bid for those marginal fuels, this era of giving marginal fuel to people who have not demonstrated technical savvy or financial capacity because they know somebody up there in Aso Rock has to end. Anybody that is going to get the marginal fuel must show.
So sorry, I just have to cut in here because you've said so much within a very short space of time. I just want to go through the CBN governor's statement. He said on their own part, from the monetary part, they've done their part. And so it was like throwing the ball to the Minister of Finance for the fiscal policies that will now be awaited to help strengthen the economic policies of the government. How soon do you think that we should be expecting such fiscal policies from the other side? Because it's a two-way game, actually.
Sambo, that is what I was trying to enunciate. I can tell you, kudos to Nnaemeka. I can tell you, the little he has done so far within the short span of time that he has been in the office, I tell you, I am mightily impressed. If those on the physical side are matching the speed, the excellence, the proactiveness that Nnaemeka have displayed on the monetary side, I think the confidence that will boost the hope of Nigerians will have been established. Now, like I said, the physical side should be in a hurry. The Minister for Finance, who is also the coordinating Minister of the Economy, has a lot of job to do. I have given you a snippet, and you didn't allow me even to finish. Like now, we have a lot of marginal fuels in the bucket that need to be in the play.
Just go ahead.
Okay, Sambo. So for us to go into the marginal field, anybody who is going to bid for marginal field must show capacity. In fact, it's no longer going to be business as usual. Any marginal field or whatever you're going to that will be able to produce about 1,000 to 5,000 barrels of crude every day. You must also collocate refineries, modular refineries within the same location. You must provide at least a letter of guarantee from a first class A bank that shows that they are willing to fund you, that are willing to support you. Let me tell you what will happen. We've been able to do in the past 2.5 million barrels of crude oil. We have 37 billion barrel reserve, which we can ramp up to $40 billion barrels, which is almost about 40-year reserve. If we decide today to ramp up to 3 million barrels under this arrangement, transparently arrangement, it will happen. Even if we have OPEC quota of 1.78 or 1.8, we can meet OPEC quota, and everything that is produced outside that will be refined here. We will control the vast sub-Saharan African refined product market. And see, let me tell you, confidence in the investing public is boosted when they see transparency, when they see, like what Cardoso is doing in CBN, is boosting confidence. But everybody is watching with bated breath what those on the physical side will do. Take for instance now, we're talking about the cost of energy and everything. Why is NMPDRA still charging 1% on percent cost on imported petroleum product? It does not make sense. Why is Nigerian Customs and Excise Department increasing the exchange rate to 1356 when they should have left it at that level? Let me tell you, Nigeria today must import a lot of things. We don't have technology here, we must import technology. Most of the things, but we must, like, he said something about Nigeria should tailor down on their quest for dollar. Education spent almost about $28 billion over the last days. Very, very good. I will even encourage more Nigerians to go out there and acquire more education. On health tourism, does it not bother you that across Nigeria, there was a group that we met, an Israeli group, the guys that funded most of the equipment of the Apollo group in India, where most of our people run to. And these guys were willing to work with some select groups to set up 6 world-class diagnostic medical hospitals in every of the 6 regions in Nigeria. What does it take to set up world-class medical centers in every region of Nigeria? If you decide today, federal government wants to do it, there are a lot of private investors working with the Elsmed Tel Aviv who can come in here and do it. In 2 years, we will have world-class medical centers.
I thought we already had some of them already coming in, because like Afreximbank, for example, is building a medical center of excellence in Abuja here, and we hear that there are others who also showing interest in other regions of the country. Very good one you've brought in there. But I want you, Dr. Obiaraeri, to talk to us about some of the issues Cardoso raised on these ways and means, because, I mean, we've seen the previous amounts that was securitized under Buhari, and then, of course, President Tinubu also asked for, I think, about 7-point-something trillion to be securitized on this ways and means sometime around December. But what he said, and I want to quote him here, is that empirical analysis has established that money supply is one of the factors fueling the current inflationary pressure in Nigeria. How do we contain the money supply within the system?
The money supply mostly came about with the ways and means 23 trillion naira that was thrown into the economy without any project to support it, and the 7.3 trillion that came in through Tinubu over the last 7 years. And beyond that, if those, just close your mind and imagine if those 23 trillions were invested in the rail sector of the economy. Close your mind and imagine if those part of those monies were used to develop, say, 1 million hectares of date palm plantation in the north. 500,000 hectares of Terra palm tree in the south, and then 2 million hectares of rice value chain. Just close your eyes. If they had printed an naira to support productivity, we wouldn't be where we are today. We know the truth. The net dollar inflow and the net dollar outflow over the last 8 years, Nigeria will have had surplus inflow. But basically what happened was that the real demand for the dollar for transnational purposes wouldn't have put us in the mess we are. What is driving the madness is the speculative demand, because people are afraid, and then the corruption-driven demand. Like I said, EFCC, ICPC, and the CBN, they have a lot of jobs to do in curtailing the quest for the dollar by the governors and those in the subnational units, and even those in the MDAs. Because one of the areas through which they launder money in Nigeria is either investment in luxury real estate or in dollar. And I've advocated ways we can checkmate this. Anybody who wants to register going forward, amend the laws. You must indicate your name, your BVN, and your TIN for you to register any land or register even to register a company in CAC. By doing so, even when they want to use front to do those things, it will be very difficult. It will be easy for EFCC to track them. Then, on the issue of public, no public sector official should go into office without publicly declaring his assets, which must be established in an e-portal. Anybody who does not want to go into the kitchen because of his should avoid the kitchen. Being a public officer exposes you to checks and balances. When we do this, then we put in place the Whistleblowing Act, establish CCB offices in every of the 74 local government areas. Any Nigerian that helps to blow the whistle gets 20% of whatever is discovered. It will make every Nigerian EFCC agent. Deterrence is the only way you can fight corruption. Let me tell you, eliminate the corruption pressure on the dollar. The naira and the dollar will be very stable. Because the average trader who goes to buy things from China does 90-day cycle. He's not buying the dollar to put into his sock away, or to hide it under his bed, or to siphon it and keep in coded accounts from Cayman Island to Bemu and all those stuff. The average trader that takes dollar to go and buy things comes in, sells them 90-day, 180-day cycle. So they keep on recycling the dollar. What is happening is that most of the dollar that comes to Nigeria is siphoned out. And that is why I also want to plead with President Bola Tinubu to develop that political muscle, not like Obasanjo, and begin to ask questions. Everybody who took away our dollar, illegally or legally, should be made to at least let them negotiate and return 70% to us and keep 30%.
All right, interesting submission you've got there. Now, there were some very sound submissions by Governor Cardoso there too. One of the things he said is that CBN will no longer be intervening in some development finance issues. I thought he was referring to the Anchor Borrowers Program, because he said we have also halted quasi-fiscal measures of over 10 trillion by the CBN under the guise of development finance interventions, which he thought contributed to flooding excess naira and raising prices to the levels of inflation we are currently grappling with today. Remove the CBN from those kind of interventions. Aren't we going to have a situation whereby people who previously participated within those kind of interventions will be laid bare without support, since banks, commercial banks, are not funding agriculture, for example?
I think you misunderstood Nnaemeka Cardoso. Cardoso said the CBN is not going to be directly involved. What he simply said that if the physical managers put the structure in place, the CBN will support them. Let me give you an example. To cover the palm oil supply gap, domestic supply gap in Nigeria, we need to cultivate at least 400,000 to 500,000 hectares of land. Take, for instance, Abia State. Abia State has 184 electoral ward. Imo State has 305 electoral ward. Just close your eyes and imagine if Imo State or Abia State government, like Abia State government is already doing it, we are working with them on that. Take, for instance, if Imo State government follows Abia State government, Abia is planning to do at least 50 hectares of new Tenera palm plantation in every of the electoral wards in Abia State. And it's going to be under private-public arrangement. Every community will clear their land, set up a cooperative that is well structured to develop a hectare of the Tenera palm plantation from nursery to harvesting. Will take about 1.5 million naira. So close your eyes and imagine 50 hectares of new Tenera palm plantation in 184 electoral wards in Abia State. Every of the local communities having a cooperative, If such structures are put in place, Cardoso will support them with funds, because it simply means you know where the funds are going to. And what this will simply mean is that as these tenara palm plantations are developing, in every local government area, there will be 2 cottage factories established to process them. We're talking about injecting over 100 billion naira into the economy of each of these states on such a very scientific arrangement. But Cardoso is not going to give the money and help them to structure it. Abia State is doing fantastic on that. We're already working with them on that side. Take, for instance, if every state in the southeast decide to adopt the same model, put the structures in place, put the people into cooperatives, provide a kind of a guarantee and the sovereign support for them, and call the CBN, tell CBN, this is what we are going to do. If we cultivate these 50 hectares of palm plantation, in the next 4 years, we'll be generating at least 2 million naira from the upstream on every of the hectare of land, plus the whole value chain income that will come with it. Over 50,000 jobs will be created under this value chain. Cardoso will see it, and Cardoso will support them. In the north, they can decide every state 50,000 hectares of date palm plantation, 1 million hectares in the next 4 years. Each of the northern states, all of them aggregated, will make about $12.7 billion annually over the next 70 years. Put the structure in place. If you have this arrangement, it will even help you to stop farm rangers and collocate the nomadic herdsmen to even graze their cows within those clusters. 80 hectares clusters of 1,250 will create massive jobs in every cluster. Put 25 agro rangers, fully trained and armed. You will have 25,000 to 50,000 agro rangers that will help to checkmate insecurity in the north. Help us to check the certification. But Cardoso will not put this structure in place. The governors and local government chairmen will put the structure in place for Cardoso to give them funds.
All right, interesting submission, but you didn't really answer my question. We'll be going on break. When we come back, I want you to really talk about how commercial banks are not funding agriculture, for example, which forced the CBN to get into that sector. But I'll just ask you to hold on this, and when we come back from the break, we will be talking about that. Well, you're still watching Arise Prime Time, and we've been discussing the CBN governor's submission at the Senate earlier today. And of course, we are taking a look at Nigeria's economy wholly with Dr. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri. Stay with us as we go on this short break. When we come back, the conversation continues. Welcome back to Arise Primetime, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Somna Sambo. And of course, I still have in our Lagos studio with me Dr. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, who's a development economist and banking executive. And we've been discussing the governor of central banks' statements made at the Senate earlier today, where he faced senators to actually talk about the steps being taken and put in place to ensure that Nigeria's economy picks up. And he says from his own perspective, they've done all that they can from the monetary perspective. And so it's left for fiscal authorities to actually ensure that they support their policies. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Obiaraeri, for still being here with us. Now, my question earlier on to you was actually that CBN was forced to get into the interventionist programs that were put in place under the former governor because commercial banks were not loaning to agricultural companies and all of that because they just want to make fast money from sales of goods and all of that. And so if CBN is tactically withdrawing from that sector under Cardoso, then what exactly is going to happen to the investments we already have in place, which, of course, we saw those interventions through the Anchor Borers program in rice and other agricultural produce here and there. Wouldn't it affect what the gains we've already achieved in those sectors?
Sambo, it will not affect it. Let me explain. If I'm the governor of a state, I'm from the southeast of Nigeria, and we have loads of diasporans outside Nigeria that brings in billions of dollars annually into Nigeria as remittances, which are just pittance part of what they earn, 5% in the maximum. If I'm the governor of a state, I will not put my FAC and JAC and my IGI in any commercial bank. I will partner with a deep-pocketed investment banker or investment banking group to set up a development finance institution in my state to raise funds. Any investment that is coming to my state will only be funded by such development financials. I will encourage my citizens to put their monies and deposits in such banks, and we will make it very interesting. I will encourage my diasporans. Of course, the governor must be very transparent and honest for him to win their trust. I will encourage my diasporans to also bring in money and invest in such development bank. We will list them on the floor of the exchange. Only investments in my state will be funded by that development fund. When you put your jack and your FAC, take them away from the commercial banks. Encourage people to put monies in those banks. I use it to fund only businesses within your state. I tell you, those commercial banks will be forced to do a turnaround. I have always advocated this. There is no state in Nigeria that cannot run on its own. Initially, I was asking that the CBN should stop the banks from putting their FAC and jack and IGR in commercial banks. But the money belongs to the state. You can't tell them what to do. But any honest chief executive of any state, especially those from the southeast, can follow this. It's free financial advisory. We can help them to structure it and put it together. You can even do it in form of a state microfinance bank. Put your FAC and jack, your operator account, your IGR in that bank. Encourage your indigenes and people from your state across the whole world to put their money in that bank. Use it to only fund projects and activities within your state. If every state should follow this, a lot of the informal sector will be brought into the formal sector through financial inclusion. It will even help the CBN to be able to drive their monetary policy. I will encourage governors to follow this route. But of course, those governors who are not sincere, who want avenues to loot and to launder money, will prefer the people that will help them. But I tell you this, go to Bangladesh, go to Indonesia, go to some other developing economies or developed economies who were within the same development bracket with us in the early 60s. They followed most of these ideas. They took development finance to the next level. I think we must be very creative in doing things. We don't need to depend on the commercial banks. Commercial banks depend on mobilizing deposits. There was even a time I encouraged churches to go and set up their own banks. Christ Embassy have done it with Paralex. You can't take on your trillions of naira and put in a bank that is not supporting your members.
Interesting. I mean, very good submission. I really like that myself. I mean, it will help boost our banking sector. Let's talk about some of the issues he raised on Forex. I mean, I was really happy about the clarity provided by the CBN governor as to the policies he has put in place on Forex. One of the issues he talked about is unifying the Forex market segments, clearing outstanding Forex obligations, introducing new operational mechanisms for BDCs and IMTOs, which is where I want you to talk about, the IMTOs. There's this new policy that's here now that if you're bringing in money into Nigeria through international money transfer, you have to receive it in naira, not in dollars. I thought we had tried this before and it just didn't work through the central bank. How optimistic are you that this time around it will work?
What the Cardoso simply said is simple. You negotiate the rate you want. There's not going to be a band like we used to have, band of minus 2.5 plus 2.5 on the previous trade value. Bring your dollar, negotiate the rates, take naira. It is left for you. Then they should also go extra miles on the export proceed. Allow the export proceed merchants to negotiate their rates and the exchange with whoever that wants to buy the dollar and take naira here. And again, to boost export, take for instance Kenya. From Mombasa to Kenya is about 7,000 kilometers. From any part of Nigeria to Europe is shorter than from Mombasa. Yes, Kenya exports over $3.4 billion worth of legumes, vegetables, flowers. Why do you think it is so? Because there is no restrictions or cumbersomeness in their exit port. They have terminals where things are exported within 6 hours. We can set up special terminals at every of our exit points, either airport or seaport. We should also look at our highways. Stop police extortion. Stop the many checkpoints that we have that create some of these bottlenecks. Somebody loads a container of yam from Imo State. By the time he gets to Lagos, it will have taken him 3 days. Or tomato from Benue State because of criminal checkpoints on the highway. If we have special terminals and we do it under PPP framework, if any goods get to the terminal and is not evacuated within 6 hours, yes, we roll in that place. Let me tell you today, a lot of Nigerians are willing to export. And if we have productivity and export of goods from Canada to America to other places, most of the food commodities that are exported there are from Ghana, from Cote d'Ivoire, from Benin Republic, from Kenya, from Ethiopia. Nigeria should create terminals special terminals that can enable export so that we
Doctor,
can
sorry if I may chip in here. Should we be exporting food when people are holding protests that they can't get food to buy or the food is too expensive?
Sambo, over the last 8 years, what we did was propaganda revolution in agriculture. Like I give you an example, to cultivate, process and produce 10 to 15 million tons of rice, which is almost double our national consumption, takes only 1 year. Sambo, we have the template. Any sincere government can work, the federal government of Nigeria can drive it, work with the state and look. If we want to crash the price of rice to 30,000 naira per 50 kg within the next 1 year, we can do it. We want to crash the price of maize and beans. Set up storage facilities in every local government, even in every electoral ward, under a private-public partnership arrangement. We lose over 60% of our produce because of lack of storage. Encourage people to go to farm, provide security for them under an agro-farm ranger arrangement that devolve and decentralized security. Let the people protect themselves. The people can protect themselves more than the police and the army. Allow the farmers to go to the farm under a structured scientific arrangement. Create a PPP framework to set up mechanized agricultural outlets in every of the electoral wards in Nigeria. Bulldozer, tractors, harvesters. It will take about 150 to 200 million in every of these clusters. $1.5 billion can do it. We can even borrow this money and tie it. It will be repaid in 7 years under a private, public. But let me tell you, Nigeria has the 64 million of arable farmland. We have the highest water tributaries among countries in Africa. We have a very youthful population of over 70% that can do these things. All we need to do is integrated, passionate, patriotic leadership, setting the pace, helping Nigerians to say, yes, we can do it. We can cultivate and produce enough rice and export outside Nigeria. Is it not shameful that Benin Republic is exporting 460,000 tons of palm oil? Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire is doing 260,000 tons. Go and check it. Ghana is doing almost 800,000 tons of cocoa export every year. The Southwest can do 3 million tons of cocoa. But we need to be very scientific. We need to be very structured.
Yeah,
we need to put together things that can be measured. And I tell you, Nigerians can feed themselves. Give them security, give them policy support, protect them and encourage them, and they will do it.
Yeah, we've always done that, and I just hope that with the right policies, we're able to do that. As we try to round off this conversation, Dr. Obiaraeri, let's talk about the CBN governor's optimism that the inflation will actually drop. Inflation rate will drop to 21.4% in 2024. Do you share that optimism with Governor Kadusu?
I share that optimism if those on the fiscal side decide to do the right thing. You don't need to waste 1 billion naira to set up 37-man committee to negotiate minimum wage. It's a waste of money, it's corruption, it's impunity. Minimum wage should be between 100,000 to 150,000. Scientifically driven. Let them sit down, even over Zoom meeting, agree on it and pass it, and let the states go and look for how they will get money. Most of the states' workforce are overbloated. In most states today, half of the workforce are redundant. Let them see how they can restructure the workforce and put them into useful, use them in diverse ways. I talked about every local government in Nigeria should have a commodity board. Set up the commodity board under a private public project. Those who are not useful, push them into that place. Put people, let me tell you, we are not supposed to be wasting more than 40% of our national revenue or state revenue, local government revenue to pay recurrent expenditures. Go and look at our balance sheet, the government balance sheet, as at 1960 to 1966. You will see clearly that what we are doing in this over the last 24 years have been a Ponzi arrangement where we sell crude oil, collect taxes, collect custom revenues, and squander it on the profligacy and the inefficiency of less than 1% of the Nigerian population who are in the public service. This country is a gold mine that can be fixed, but we must do the right things. We must cut cost of governance. Presidential jet fleet should not be up to 9 aircraft. How many does Britain have? We should cut down the presidential fleet to about only 4 and sell the rest of them to either Air Peace or any of the private jet hiring companies. We can't continue wasting our monies on jamborees. The National Assembly should be We should have a unicameral. Senegal did it. The Senate should be scrapped. Let the House of Reps be the only, and then we should reduce the peg of office. Align the peg of office to be with that of the civil service, so that anybody who is going to Abuja to go and make law, when you know we are not going to give you SUV, when you calculate the cost of going to Abuja to go and make law, and you discover that it does not make any sense for you, since there's nothing to loot, you will stay in your place and allow those who have the capacity, who has demonstrated excellence in the private sector, just like Sir Louis Obiaraeri, to go to parliament and contribute their knowledge, their acumen, their patriotism in building a great Nigeria. We have developed a rent-seeking culture and a political environment where the worst of us, because they can grab, steal power, manipulate, bribe, and get into power, have most people who are very decent in Nigeria, who have something to offer, have stayed away from politics. We must have to devolve, restructure Nigeria, both the constitutional and physical framework, back to the 1966-63 arrangement, to enable the best of Nigerians to get into place of power and authority.
All right, Dr. Obiaraeri, I mean, I really enjoy some of the submissions that you've brought. And of course, the place of the subnationals is one thing we can't push away here. Let's talk about some of the state governors and how they need to take proactive fiscal measures in the states, since they don't have monetary authority. Monetary authorities within the state, to ensure that they support the center, because we just keep pushing everything to the federal government. What should the Nigerian Governors Forum and the governors be doing to support both the fiscal and monetary authorities at the center?
Like I said, number one, they should stop using the FAC and JAC and IGR to pursue dollar. Even if they want to take the money, they should invest it here in Nigeria. That is number one. Number two, they should look inward to develop their states. There is no state in Nigeria that is not sustainable, that cannot survive on its own without crude oil revenue from the Nile Delta. There is no state in Nigeria that does not have natural endowments, things that they can harness to be able to sustain the citizen and make everybody happy. Then the issue of security. You know, whenever I hear, oh, this governor is weak, they can't do this, they are looking at Abuja. There is no state that is very sincere that cannot protect. There is no state governor that is very sincere that cannot protect its own people. But there is something that is lacking, the issue of legitimacy, the issue of patriotism. Like I say to everyone, in fact, you know, the most painful that those who have not really managed funds, whenever they see some of this little trickle that comes in from FAC and JAC, they think they've seen money. Look at somebody like Elon Musk. The kind of money Elon Musk makes in a day is more than what a governor steals in 8 years, even if you want to take all the JAC and FAC. If you open your eyes and you see that you don't even need to steal to be able to create wealth for your people under private-public partnership arrangements. I give an example. The most lucrative rail route in Nigeria is the Lagos, Shagamu, Ijebu-Ode, or Benin, Asaba, Onitsha, Owerri, to Port Harcourt, circle down to Umuahia, Aba, back to Okigwe, to Oka, and back to Onitsha and Asaba. The 8-9 states within that contiguous part can decide to drive a private-public partnership arrangement to develop a rail network. It will take about $8 billion. Get a license of a band group in Germany, or even GIP to be their private sector partner. Set up an SPV that would, each state will invest at least 2.5% of the amount of money that will be required to an SPV. The private sector rail operator will take 35% or 30%. You can easily syndicate funds. Nigerians in diaspora and even within Nigeria will contribute to it. We've done a sample and we've done studies on that route. That route, under a 45-year design, build, operate, and transfer arrangement, can repay itself in 17 years.
All right. Very.
You don't need to wait, and this thing will attract over $12 billion into the economy. You don't need to wait for the federal government of Nigeria to do it. Very
interesting submission. I hope some of these governors will actually be paying you for giving them free consultancy right here at Arise News. Well, just before I let you go, Dr. Obiaraeri, some sort of cheering news from the CBN governor while he was appearing at the Senate. He said $1 billion have actually found their way into the economy within the short span of about a week or two, based on some of the actions that he has taken. Talk to us about how that will help strengthen the economy at this point in time. And lastly, some of the senators were very much interested in how to stop the dollarization of the economy, you know, because several elite places, supermarkets and all of that are charging in dollars. How do we ensure that, the CBN, stands this time around and ensure that that policy against dollarization is actually implemented fully? Quickly before we let you go.
Sambo, using dollar for lawful transactions and is allowed to circulate within the economy will not destroy the economy. What is destroying the economy is that dollars are taken out of our system, either hidden in soccerways, in basements, or taken out to buy houses from Maryland to New York and all the rest of it, or UK and whatever. If we decide today, we can ban use of dollar cash. Anything above $5,000, no option of fine, 1 year imprisonment, and we'll enforce it. EFCC need to do a lot of work, and Nigerians also need to support, and we also need to appeal to our conscience. It's actually a mark of economic sabotage for you to be a governor, a minister, or a political office holder. You don't have confidence even in the country that you purport to govern, and you're involved in buying dollar to hoard. Let us build. See, let me tell you, Nnaemeka will even get more inflow. Watch it in the next couple of days or weeks. The FPIs will come in to take advantage of the new policy directives. But these are hot monies. We need foreign direct investment. We need foreign diaspora investments and remittances. States must encourage PPPs in housing, like I mentioned, the railway, in every other sector. States must be encouraged. They must engage robust, creative investment bankers like us to help them put the resources in place. There is no state that cannot attract anything less than $200 to $300 million annually if they put in place the right fiscal, regulatory, and ease of doing business framework within their state and tackle insecurity. You don't need to wait for Abuja. You discovered the other day, Peter B told the story of how Adwa encouraged him to recover some of the evil forests where the criminals were hiding. And in 6 months, he cleared the evil forest, and Anambra was the safest state in 5 years. There is no governor who is very sincere. If you have the confidence of your people, involve the communities, involve the town union people, involve the churches. Every community knows the good, the bad, and the ugly within their system. Empower the good to take over their land. Train them, equip them, arm them to work with the police and the army. And Nigeria will be in for a good time.
All right, Dr. Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, we must thank you so much for a brilliant analysis and offering free consultancy to especially the governors right here on Arise News. And on a day where the CBN governor actually said that we have about 75 trillion naira or thereabouts of money supply in circulation, I mean, I became worried at some point that we will have such huge amounts of cash as money supply within the system. And so with your analysis and some of the solutions you proffered here, we just hope that the right authorities will continue to listen to people like you and then find solutions. We must thank you so much. Dr. Obiaraeri Nnaemeka is actually a development economist and a banking executive who has helped us to understand all the issues raised by both senators and, of course, the answers provided by the Central Bank Governor Nnaemeka during his appearance at the Senate earlier on Friday. Well, that's how it's been for this edition of Arise Primetime. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye and thank you for watching. I'm Nnaemeka.